Somebody's getting it, somebody's getting my love. Somebody's getting it, somebody got
Hi, I'm Pouyan Shirzadi.
And I'm Kiran Kilambi.
And you're listening to the Court Podcast. Today on the Court Podcast, we're going to discuss the GOAT of each Western Conference team. So without no further ado, let's get into it. So Kiran, who do you think is the GOAT of the Los Angeles Clippers?
In my opinion, the GOAT of the Clippers is Chris Paul. He was a 5-time All-Star, a 3-time first-team All-NBA of the Clippers, and in my opinion, he was their best player when they made those playoff runs. And they never were a serious, finals contender, but he was the best player on that team, in my opinion, and he made...
You don't think Blake Griffin was the best player on that team?
No, I think it was Chris Paul, to be honest, and he made everybody around him better, being the point guard, and,
True.
Obviously he's not there anymore, but he should be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done, and during that period, he was the best.
In my opinion, Kiran, I'm going to go with Blake Griffin because same as Chris Paul, he was 5-time All-Star and 4-time All-NBA. He was also Rookie of the Year and took the team to 6 straight playoff appearances. And let's be honest, he could have done those dunks without Chris Paul.
That's true.
In all honesty.
That's true.
But besides that as well, DeAndre Jordan was also an honorable mention that we got to give out. He was an All-Star first team as well a few times, and he was 2 times first defensive team, and that deserves an honorable mention.
Yeah.
But Kiran, why didn't you bring up Bob McAdoo?
Because to be honest,
Yeah.
I don't know much about the guy. I'm being perfectly honest. I mean, he played in the 60s, I think, or the 70s.
Yeah.
And, Chris Paul, I watched, a lot more than Bob McAdoo. And, I guess there is recency bias, but...
True.
I think that, he made the Clippers relevant back when the Lakers... when the Lakers weren't doing well, during when Kobe was old and, in the Steve Nash era, the Clippers were the best team for sure. And they're the best. We can make a good argument they're the best team in the state, before Golden State really became a powerhouse. But, Bob McAdoo, credit to him. I'm sure he was really good, but in all honesty, I don't know much about the guy.
Bob McAdoo was the 1975 MVP. He was also Rookie of the Year and a 3-time scoring champion with the Buffalo Braves, which was the Los Angeles Clippers back then. Mm-hmm. He was snubbed of the 50th anniversary team, and it was actually one of the 2 players that people were surprised with did not make the list.
Yeah.
Him and Dominique Wilkins. But yeah, we're considering modern day, we're gonna go with Kiran's gonna go with Chris Paul, and I'm going to go with Blake Griffin. So the next team up is the Memphis Grizzlies. So Kiran, who do you think is the GOAT of the Memphis Grizzlies?
In my opinion, the GOAT of the Memphis Grizzlies is current Raptor Marc Gasol. And I think so because he was a 3-time All-Star, All-NBA first team in 2015, and he was a Defensive Player of the Year. And I didn't really take into account, most of their players in the Vancouver era, but his time in Memphis, he was there for over a decade, and he was consistently the best player, and I believe he made a Western Conference Finals with the Grizzlies too, being...
Yeah, he did.
And
I think 2014 or 2015 he did.
Yeah, and he's a 3-time All-Star, which is pretty good, and obviously...
I couldn't agree with you anymore. I couldn't agree with you anymore. You said basically all the points. But why not Paul Gasol or Zach Randolph?
I was thinking of Zach Randolph also, but I don't think he played there as long as Gasol did, and he was an All-Star a couple times, but that's about it. And Marc Gasol made an All-NBA first team, so yeah. And also
shout outs to Paul as well.
Shout out to Paul and
Mike Conley.
Yeah, Mike Conley.
You better not fuck Mike Conley. Overrated. Kiran, you know my thoughts on Mike Conley. I said it last year to you when he got traded to the Utah Jazz. He is an overrated piece of garbage. Like, he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but he's just overrated. Some people talk about how he got snubbed from the All-Star team a few years ago. He did not. He's just overpaid. He's bare average, and I just, on a team like Memphis Grizzlies where there's no superstar, let's say, during the time he was there, he didn't really carry the team or carry a load, and I do not think he deserves a shout-out whatsoever. I just got to say that. In terms of the Vancouver era, there weren't that many great players that stayed there for a long time, but I think there was Sharif Abdul-Rahim and Mike Bibby that I think are worthy of a shout-out.
Yeah.
So next team is the Utah Jazz. So Kiran, who do you have as the GOAT of the Utah Jazz?
So we all know that Carl and Stockton, they're the two best by far, and it's really a pick 'em between the two. But in my opinion, the GOAT is Karl Malone. And, he was a 14-time All-Star. He won the MVP twice and 11-time first-team All-NBA member. And obviously, both Malone and Stockton are Hall of Famers. Both Malone and Stockton, lost to the MJ Bulls in 97, 98. But in my opinion, Malone was better probably because he has the two MVPs and more All-Star appearances.
I went with both of them because they both were playing in the same time period and they both did the same thing. And in my opinion, they both couldn't do it without one another.
Yeah, that's true.
So, Karl Malone was second all-time top scoring.
Yep.
And honestly, that is all due to Stockton's assisting. But, Stockton probably wouldn't gotten as many assists if it wasn't without Malone. So I'm just going to give it to both of them, even though Malone was given 2-time MVP and you said 11-time All-NBA first team.
Yeah.
You also mentioned their 2-time finals run in 97-98 against the Bulls. They were both also 50th team, and they both got their numbers 32 and 12 retired. But I'm going to give an honorable mention to Pistol Pete. Way ahead of his time, He averaged 40 points, like 45, 42 points in college with Louisiana State. But if you're talking about his times with the New Orleans Jazz / Utah Jazz, 3-time All-Star, 2-time first team, scoring champion, and he had his number 7 retired. And honestly, he was one of the most creative minds in the NBA, and he played in an era before the 3-point line, and he scored many, many points from beyond the arc. So, yeah.
And also, I just want to say one thing. The Jazz selected Stockton with their first round pick out of Gonzaga in 1984, and then the year after they selected Karl Malone out of La Tech with their first round pick. And I mean, I don't know if I can think of a team like drafting 2 players in back-to-back years that turned out to be both superstars. And
that there were other teams, but they had higher lottery picks. Utah had like mid-roundish picks or like late lottery picks. There've obviously been teams in the current era, such as the OKC Thunder, who've drafted 3 superstars in a row. But, for their time, Jazz did draft pretty well and back-to-back.
I mean, they drafted 2 franchise players in back-to-back years, which is great. But that's all.
Yep. So next up, we got the Sacramento Kings, a.k.a. the Cincinnati Royals. And in my opinion, Kiran, the GOAT without a doubt is Oscar Robertson. 1964 MVP. He was more than a 10-time All-Star, 9-time first team. And he also had the first triple-double season in the NBA. So who do you think? Or do you have Oscar Robertson or do you have someone else as the Kings GOAT? Yeah,
I agree. I have Oscar Robertson as the best, in that franchise history. But if we're just speaking Sacramento, I have Chris Webber written down. But Oscar...
Yeah, I have Chris Webber as an honorable mention.
Yeah, but Oscar Robertson is the best for sure for that franchise, for all the reasons you mentioned.
Yeah, I don't think we need to talk about the Kings for long. No offense to Kings fan, but you know that you have not been that relevant in a long time other than, early 2000s and late 60s. So we're just going to go to the other team in the California state, the team with the most history, the team with 16 NBA championships, the Los Angeles Lakers. So, Kiran, who do you think is the GOAT of the Los Angeles Lakers?
And this is probably the toughest decision that, both the two of us would have to make. And my answer may be different from yours, but quite honestly, I think the GOAT is Kobe. So, first of all, God rest his soul, but he was a 5-time champion,
Rest in peace.
2-time Finals MVP. After Shaq left, he was an 18-time All-Star and 4-time All-Star Game MVP, which is pretty damn good. A lot more.
And I gotta say something about that. He played 20 seasons. Some of them at the end he was injured. In the 2 seasons he didn't make the All-Star game was his rookie year, where the coach did not play him as much, and the lockout season in 1999 where there was no All-Star game. Those were the only 2 seasons where he was not an All-Star.
I mean, we've been talking about, all these players, all these GOATs from all these teams. I don't know if any of them, including MJ, have 18 All-Star appearances. So
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Well, MJ retired a few times during his prime.
that's actually true, though. That's true.
We'll give that to him, but no current no superstar in his era or yet. LeBron might get there. LeBron might hit the 19-20 time All-Star. I think he has an equal record with Kareem. I don't know if Kareem has more or they have the same amount, but I know Kareem is close.
Yeah.
But yeah, if people are asking this question, is this due to recency bias?
No.
Nope. I don't know about Kiran, but personally, I don't think it's due to recency bias because I looked at every other Lakers GOAT, and Kobe did it. Even though Kobe had a partner with Shaq for the first 3, even though he did have Paul in the second time going around, you can't say Paul was like Kareem,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
or Paul was like Wilt or Jerry West. He did it all by himself. Considering in terms of superstar levels. So yeah, that's why in my opinion he is the Lakers GOAT and in Kiran's opinion as well. But honorable mentions go out to Magic,
Kareem,
Jerry West, Wilt, Shaq.
Yep.
Elgin Baylor, one of the greatest superstars to never win a championship, James Worthy, and George Mikan. So yeah.
Yeah.
Kiran, I just think we should just skip the Mavericks. We all know who it is. I don't think it's a debate. It's Dirk.
Yep. I mean, he's a
50, 40, 90 club.
top 3 foreign-born player ever, arguably the best foreign-born player ever. Him and Hakeem, but yeah, it's Dirk.
Yeah, for sure. 2007 MVP, 2011 NBA champion. Took down the Heat. Heat trio in their first season.
The first finals appearance of the Big 3, he took them down. Yeah.
Yeah, the Heatles. 14-time All-Star, 12-time All-NBA. For European during a time where Europeans were known as soft. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Dirk Nowitzki, the Mavs GOAT, without any honorable mentions. Next up, we got the Nuggets, Kiran. So, who do you think is the GOAT of the Denver Nuggets?
I wanted to hear what you thought about the Nuggets first. So, do you mind if you go first? Because
Okay. I'll go with the Nuggets first, Kiran.
Right.
Just for you.
Thank you.
So this one was low key a hard one because there aren't that many great Nuggets players. Not many superstars. They've all been consistent throughout. But I went with Carmelo Anthony due to more recent stuff. But honorable mentions go to Alex English. You hear nowadays sometimes commentators be like, "Oh, he just did that layup with a bit of English in it." And that says a lot about a player that not a lot of current NBA fans know, but how his legacy and how his name is still in the game in a way.
Yeah.
But I went with Carmelo Anthony, 3-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA. And yeah, Alex English, is the number 2 retired and was an 8-time All-Star with the Denver Nuggets. So yeah.
Yeah, I went with Carmelo too, and I have Alex English and Dikembe Mutombo written down.
Oh, Dikembe.
And Dikembe, I mean, I had him honestly above Alex English. I mean, he started his career in Denver. He didn't play there much, but he still won Defensive Player of the Year and was a 3-time All-Star there before getting traded, and is obviously a Hall of Famer. So Carmelo is my choice, but Dikembe is second for me.
Also, to the fans out there listening, when we do say the stats, we're saying their stats with that team. We obviously know Carmelo Anthony has around 10 All-Star appearances, but we're just saying the 3 he got with the Denver Nuggets.
And Dikembe is more Defensive Player of the Year, but he only has the one with...
he had a Defensive Player of the Year with Denver?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. I know he had a lot.
He has 2 with Atlanta, and I think 1 with another team, but he is the one with Denver.
One with Philly, I think.
Yeah, you're right. I think.
Yeah. Okay, so next up we got the New Orleans Hornets / Pelicans. And this one is like a tough one. But I went with Chris Paul, Kiran.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you have as the
I went with AD and
AD?
yeah.
Okay.
And it's, here do you want to explain yours first or?
I went purely based off the fact that Chris Paul had more playoff appearances than with the Hornets than Anthony Davis did with the Pelicans.
Yeah.
They even though Pelicans had more individual accolades and accomplishments, Chris Paul just did it better. Both of them were. I forgot to say Anthony Davis was not Rookie of the Year, but Chris Paul was Rookie of the Year. He was 4-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA, 3-time defensive. He was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, AD was a 6-time All-Star, 3-time All-NBA first team, and I mean, he became one of the best, if not the best, big man center in the league at the tail end of his career in New Orleans. And it's sad it's a shame how it ended, but in my opinion,
with both of them. I hope it doesn't end in the same way with Zion.
Oh God, I hope so too. I hope. But
not they say the third time is the charm, and New Orleans is really taking care of Zion. Like you can see that. So that is nice to see.
And I mean, it's just like obviously off topic, but Zion is surrounded by other young stars there, and he's in good company in New Orleans.
Yeah. I believe that the New Orleans Pelicans, if all goes right, and if it wasn't because of, injuries in the time we're in, maybe they could be similar to what, like they have a similar potential to what the OKC Thunder had in the early 2010s.
Yeah.
Before James Harden left. Yeah. Okay, next up, we got the Houston Rockets. So I don't think there's a debate with this one. There's some good honorable mentions, but Kiran, who do you have with the Houston Rockets?
The Houston Rockets' best player ever, in my opinion, is Hakeem Olajuwon. And, he was a 2-time champion in middle of the 90s. I believe at least one of them, MJ was retired. And the second one is, I think, when MJ came back and lost in the playoffs. Yeah. And he won Finals
to
MVP.
The Orlando Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He won Finals MVP those 2 seasons. He was an NBA MVP in 1994, 12-time All-Star, and also 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Former Raptor too, but I think and a Hall of Famer, of course.
Most people don't know that. Yeah.
And
50th team, number 34 retired.
And he's the best. And honestly, if Houston wins this year, then Harden inches a bit closer, and if they win again, like I guess next year or whatever,
I doubt that they will win twice.
Yeah, I mean who knows? But if Harden wins multiple championships in the future, then he has a pretty good case. But right now, Hakeem is for sure the best.
I believe right now the Houston Rockets do have a chance. Like in my opinion, this is their only window to win, and mainly just because of the pandemic and how they went small ball.
Yeah.
That most people don't know how they're gonna play and have a little sample size of what they know about the Rockets. So in my opinion, if they don't win now, they'll never win. And in my opinion, James Harden is never gonna become a champion in his career.
Yeah,
Russell Westbrook might, but I don't think James Harden will.
It's a shame. Like 2018 was the year for them, and then Chris Paul got hurt. But it's a shame.
And they also missed all their 3-pointers.
Yep, that too. They went over 27. Never forget that. That's unbelievable. So bad.
Honorable mention to Moses Malone, who also was a 2-time MVP with the Houston Rockets and has number 24 retired with them. But let's go to the next team. So, Kiran, who do you think is the GOAT for the San Antonio Spurs?
In my opinion, the GOAT is Tim Duncan. And obviously, him and Parker and Manu, they were, the 3 Musketeers in Pop's system. But Duncan was the best player, in my opinion. 5-time champion, 3-time Finals MVP, and 2-time League MVP too, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I agree with you. Honorable mentions go out to Greg Popovich. I think if he wasn't, he is the GOAT of the Spurs, in my opinion. He is the mastermind behind it. Honorable mentions for real go out to David Robinson, 2-time champion.
That's true too.
1995 MVP, 50th team Defensive Player of the Year. And George Gervin, I don't know how to say his last name. He was pretty good for the San Antonio Spurs before the Spurs were relevant. 9-time All-Star, 5-time first team, has the number 44 retired for the Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. Next up, the Phoenix Suns, Kiran. And I'm gonna go and tell you this one first. In my opinion, the GOAT of the Phoenix Suns is Steve Nash.
Mm-hmm.
2-time MVP, 6-time All-Star, 4-time 50, 40, 90 club just with the Phoenix Suns. And I think whenever people think of the Phoenix Suns, they think of Steve Nash. And I know he didn't take them to any finals, but he got pretty unlucky. If anyone wants to watch like an informational documentary on this, I know SB Nation has like a 30-minute video on how Steve Nash just never won the championship. And he got pretty unlucky. But Kiran, who do you have?
Devin Booker. Just kidding. I
Devin
have
Booker.
Steve Nash too. And
You should say Dragan Bender, man. Dragan Bender.
Aaron Baines.
Number 5th pick.
Aaron Baines, the best.
Aaron
Phoenix
Baines.
Sun
Aaron
ever.
Baines is pretty good.
I know, he's not bad at
Aaron
all.
Baines is pretty good.
But anyways, Steve Nash, he won back-to-back MVPs, which is pretty impressive. And obviously, 6-time All-Star, like you mentioned. And he was a 50, 40, 90 club member 4 times, which is really good too. So yeah. And
honorable mentions go out to Charles.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sir Charles Barkley.
Sir Charles Barkley.
MVP finals run against the Bulls, and where he nearly beat them.
Yeah, he did.
Similar with the Rockets, he could have beaten the Rockets in the next year when MJ left. He was also 50th team.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
Okay. So next up, we got the Seattle Supersonics / Oklahoma City Thunder. And Kiran, who is your OKC Thunder GOAT?
In my opinion, the OKC Thunder GOAT is Russell Westbrook. And
Yes, I agree with you.
obviously, Durant was the better player probably, when he was still there.
Probably no. He was the better
yeah,
player.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he won an MVP.
Like skill-wise, he is the better player, but Westbrook was better in terms of like heart and grind.
Yeah, and he was Oklahoma City himself, and
Yeah.
it's a shame that how he never really got to win a championship there, and he's definitely a Hall of Famer, but his time with the Thunder makes him the best for me. What he did.
2017 MVP, 3 triple-double seasons in a row, which was these past 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Honorable mentions to KD, 2014 MVP, a 50, 40, 90 club, 7-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA, and also GP Gary Payton, 9-time All-Star, Defensive Player of the Year as a point guard, and a final run in the 90s against the Chicago Bulls.
Yep.
Kieran, do you have anyone else in mind? Or
Yeah,
no?
I was thinking that Gary Payton was my best Seattle Supersonic ever, but I guess Westbrook is the best for that franchise in general.
And I just want to give an honorable mention because I really like this player. Underrated player, never really did much, but Nick Collison spent 16 seasons with both Seattle and OKC. He was someone who was a player that just stayed throughout that whole run, and you just got to give it to him, man. Great player.
Yeah.
Next up, we got the Minnesota Timberwolves. So, Kieran, who is your GOAT for the Minnesota Timberwolves?
My GOAT for the Timberwolves is Kevin Garnett. And
Kevin Garnett?
he was a 10-time All-Star in Minnesota, 04 MVP, 3-time All-NBA first team. And obviously, anything is possible. He won the championship in Boston. But when he was in Minnesota, he was the best player on the team. And he will be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And is my GOAT.
Yeah, he is a Hall of Famer. He just needs to get the whole, because of COVID, they haven't done it yet. But he would have been a Hall of Famer around this time of the year.
That's true, actually. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. For sure, it's Kevin Garnett. Pretty unlucky in Minnesota. Honorable mentions go out to Kevin Love. I feel like people don't remember how good Kevin Love was with Minnesota. During the 2011-12 season, early in the 2010s, before three-pointers were that big of a deal, the man was averaging 15.2 rebounds and hitting 47% 3 points. He made 47% of his 3-point shots. That is a lot.
Yeah.
And 2-time All-NBA team, most improved player. Just a great player all around. And I just think, I hope history doesn't forget how good he was in his time with Minnesota. Okay, next up, Kiran, we got the Portland Trailblazers. So who do you think is the GOAT of the Trailblazers?
In my opinion, the GOAT is Clyde Drexler. He was a 8-time All-Star, All-NBA first team in 92, and it's a Hall of Famer. And now, obviously, Dame is on the come up, and if he wins a championship in Portland, I think he'll be the best.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But right now, I think it's Drexler.
Yeah, I had a Clyde and Dame in my honorable mentions. But before I go to my GOAT, let's not forget Dame was the rookie of the year in the season where there was Anthony Davis as a rookie as well. But yeah, my GOAT for the Trailblazers is Bill Walton. 1977 NBA championship, 78 MVP, 2-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA, and 2-time defensive first team.
Yeah.
And he was in the 50th anniversary team as well. You know, before when I was younger, I never got the whole hype with Bill Walton because, you know, people were like, Bill Walton was so good. But, you know, after watching a few clips of his and, you know, throughout the time I spent, like, studying the game, he was a bit ahead of his time. He just got unlucky and got injured a lot. But, you know, he managed to win the Trailblazers the league. And, you know, the Trailblazers fans will always remember him for that. And I feel just that one championship is more than enough to take him over and make him the GOAT of the Trailblazers. I know Clyde took them to the finals, and Dame could have took them to the finals last year if it wasn't because they got unlucky. They were ahead at halftime.
Every game.
In the 4 games they got swept. Yeah.
Every single game, yeah.
Every game they were ahead of the Golden State Warriors, and they just got unlucky. But yeah, Bill Walton, Trailblazers GOAT. And lastly but not least, the Golden State Warriors, Kiran. I'm 100% sure we both have the same player. So 3, 2, 1. Stephen Curry.
Yep.
Yes.
So,
Kiran, explain why. I'll let you explain this one.
you know, obviously he's a 3-time champion and was the, you know, he was a centerpiece of the Warriors dynasty, and he was
The dynasty isn't dead yet.
It's not dead yet, but
They might have a chance to win another one
next
if they
year-
get lucky.
next-
I'm not saying they will, but they have a chance. I feel like if they get lucky or have a good signing or a good trade, they can win it again.
yeah, they're for sure a playoff team in my opinion next year. Who knows if they'll win another one? But, you know, obviously Steph Curry is a 2-time MVP, the first ever unanimous MVP, and is the greatest shooter of all time to many people. And, you know, obviously this whole, you know, he has no finals MVP thing is around, but that doesn't bring him down as, like, a top player because he's so good and he's such a great shooter that having no finals MVP isn't that big of a deal. And if he does get a finals MVP and the Warriors do win again, then he's pushing top 5 best player ever in my opinion, and he'll for sure be top 10. But yeah, Steph Curry.
Okay, I don't think Stephen Curry is the greatest shooter of all time. I'll get back to that later. Also about the unanimous MVP, Shaq is still salty about that.
Yeah.
Because that one guy voted for Allen Iverson in the 2000 seasons.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you honorable mentions go out to Wilt. 100-point. He had the 100-point game with the Philadelphia Warriors. He was also an MVP with them. And Rick Barry, the guy who made the granny shot, the granny free throw cool.
Yep.
He was Rookie of the Year, 50th team. He won the 1975 NBA championship with the Golden State Warriors. But in my opinion, this should be higher on the list. But Klay Thompson is my last honorable mention. In my opinion, he is the best. He's the greatest of all time shooter. And in my opinion, he's going to be remembered as one of the most underrated players ever.
For sure. No question.
Like, Klay Thompson is just so good. And I wish more people just, like, realize how good he was.
Yeah.
That in my opinion, on any other team, he could be their first player. Like, in any other championship team, he could be the number one player.
Oh, yeah.
The go-to guy.
He's definitely going to go down as one of the most underrated ever.
Yeah. And yeah, Kiran, I think that's it with today's episode. A shorter one for our fans. We're hopefully going to make them all around 30 minutes. And yeah, Kiran, do you have any comments?
No, I mean, I enjoyed going through, you know, all the team's history and finding these players and finding, you know, these little interesting stats. But now we have the season to look forward to.
Yes, our next episode will be looking at the upcoming continuation of the season. And yeah, don't forget to like this video, subscribe us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And lastly, make sure to check out our website, which is in the link in the description. And yeah, Thank you for listening today. I'm Pouyan Shirzadi,
I'm Kiran Kilambi.
and we hope you have a great day.